You know that feeling when you just feel stuck with a nagging anxiety, or maybe a pessimistic streak you just can't seem to shake. It's this feeling that our emotional reactions are just hardwired, that they're out of our control. But what if that whole idea is just wrong? What if our brains are way more flexible than we ever thought possible? Well, that's exactly what science is telling us now, and it all starts with tearing down a really old idea. For over 100 years, the prevailing belief, even in science, was that our brains were basically fixed once we grow up. This wasn't just a minor theory. It was a core belief in neuroscience that shaped pretty much everything we thought we knew about our own minds. And this idea came from the top. This quote is from Santiago Ramon y Cajal, a Nobel Prize winner and basically the father of modern neuroscience. His view was crystal clear. Once you're an adult, your brain circuits are locked in. The hardware is set in stone, period. But what if that core assumption, the one we held on to for a century, was completely and totally backwards? I mean, that single question, it changes everything. So this big shift in thinking really kicked off when researchers started looking at how different people's brains reacted to the very same thing. They probably expected to see a few small differences here and there, but what they actually found was a revolution. The experiment was pretty simple. They showed people videos meant to get an emotional reaction, funny clips, or on the flip side, a sad news report, and they just watched what happened in their brains. The assumption was that most brains would look pretty similar. Well, they didn't. Not even close. Get this, the difference they found was 3,000%. And no, that is not a typo. When they looked at the left prefrontal cortex, an area tied to positive emotions, the gap between the least active and most active brains was that big. Some people's brains barely flickered, while others lit up like a Christmas tree. This discovery led to a brand new idea, emotional style. You can think of it like an emotional fingerprint. It's not about how you feel right now, but about your consistent default way of responding to things. It's the reason why one person's baseline might be that nagging anxiety, while someone else's is naturally optimistic. And it all comes down to the baseline activity in your brain circuits. And here's the critical part. These styles are physically real. They exist in your brain's wiring. For example, your social intuition, how good you are at reading body language and social cues, is directly linked to the connection between your amygdala and the fusiform gyrus, which is your brain's face processing hub. Different activity levels here literally make you better or worse at reading a room. It's the actual hardware behind our emotional habits. Okay, so if our emotional styles are so different and they're wired into our brains, does that mean we're just stuck with the brain we were given? Well, no. And the reason is a concept so powerful, it completely rewrote the rules of the game. It's called neuroplasticity. And it's this simple but absolutely profound idea that our brains can and do change throughout our entire lives. So stop thinking of your brain as a computer's unchangeable hardware. It's much more like software that you can update, patch, and completely reconfigure based on your experiences. One of the most amazing experiments that shows this in action involved a piano. Researchers took two groups of people who'd never played before. The first group physically practiced a simple five-finger exercise every day for a week. The second group, well, they just imagined practicing it, visualizing every finger movement without ever touching a single key. The result was absolutely mind-blowing. Both groups showed the exact same physical changes in the motor cortex. That's the part of the brain that controls your fingers. The brain region dedicated to those piano-playing fingers got bigger in the people who actually played and in the people who just thought about playing. Just the power of thought was enough to physically rewire the brain. How wild is that? And look, this isn't some weird fluke with pianos. We see this stuff everywhere. London taxi drivers who have to memorize a mind-boggling 25,000 streets physically grow a larger hippocampus, the brain's memory center. Pro violinists have bigger brain areas dedicated to the fingers on their left hand. And in blind individuals who read Braille, their visual cortex, with nothing to see, actually gets repurposed to read by touch. The brain just adapts. Okay, so this is all incredible. Our brains can change. That's the what. But now let's get to the so what. How do we take this amazing science and actually use it to get ourselves unstuck from those emotional ruts we all fall into? Well, the conclusion is pretty straightforward and really powerful. If all these passive experiences and even just our thoughts can physically change our brain, then it stands to reason that we can change it intentionally. We can do it on purpose. And this is the key insight. You can think of mental training, things like mindfulness or cognitive therapy, as a workout for your brain. Every time you practice, you are strengthening specific neural pathways. Just like lifting weights strengthens a specific muscle, you are deliberately guiding your brain's own plasticity to build healthier habits. So here's a really simple but powerful technique you can use called cognitive reappraisal. It's just 3 steps. First, you just notice the automatic negative thought when it pops up. Don't judge it, just see it. Second, you challenge it. Ask yourself, is this thought really 100% true? And third, you actively reframe it. Find a more balanced, realistic way to see the situation. This isn't just positive thinking, it's a structured exercise to train your brain out of those damaging old grooves. So, when you put this all together, what does it really mean for us? Well, it represents a massive shift in how we see ourselves, our potential, and our own minds. This quote from Alvaro Pascual Leon, the very scientist who did that piano experiment, just says it all. Change isn't the exception to the rule, change is the rule. Plasticity isn't a weird bug in the system, it's the brain's main feature. And this is the ultimate takeaway. For so long, we sort of saw ourselves as victims of our brain's wiring, stuck with whatever we were given. But the science of neuroplasticity tells a different story. It shows us that we have agency. Our thoughts, our focus, our training, they can all actively shape the physical structure of our brain. So in the end, you're not just a tenant living in a house that someone else designed. You are the architect. You have the power to renovate, to rewire, and to rebuild. So the only question left is, what kind of mind are you going to choose to build?